UFC superstar Paddy Pimblett isn't your average fighter. The 27-year-old loves eating junk food and often has no worry about his weight in between fights. And even though he balloons up to 200 pounds at times, it still doesn't mean he isn't one of the most dangerous fighters out there. Keep watching as we tell you how he proved just that after taking on the US Marines and submitting 10 of them in a row. First up, keep them coming. Paddy Pimblett is having quite the time away from home, chilling in the States, spending most of his time training and making media appearances. He's also having his very own all-American food tour, trying out all the different kinds of cuisines the country has to offer. And while the Brit may not be in the greatest shape of his life, it still doesn't mean he isn't a natural killer. The Liverpool native showcased his excellent athletic conditioning by spending a day with the US Marines, going through various training exercises and drills. And the fact that he was able to complete all of them despite being way over his fighting weight is absolutely crazy. Paddy called it a super hard workout, and that's probably what got the Marines cocky, thinking they could take on an exhausted and sweaty UFC fighter. But even then, they failed to do any real damage, with Pimblett dominating all 10 Marines who tried to wrestle him. And you know how most athletes tend to lose their grace and fluidity when they're really tired? Well, we just found out that doesn't happen to Paddy. Even after a grueling training drill, the UFC superstar made light work of all 10 of them. It was just so amazing to watch how effortlessly he was putting them away one after the other. Next, so what's his secret? Honestly speaking, the video of him submitting the Marines just blew us away. And it wasn't only because of the fighting. Paddy literally looked like a kid on summer vacation, watching movies and eating junk food the entire day. His face was visibly ballooned up, and you could tell he was really enjoying that classic American food. We always knew he'd still be very strong at 200 pounds though, but we had no idea he could manage all that extra weight so effortlessly without any trouble whatsoever. So what is his secret? How was he able to make some of the toughest guys in the world look like kids? Well, in the words of the man himself, I have the balance of a ballerina, but I weigh like a sumo wrestler. We're not gonna lie, that's probably the best way to put it. The way he moves around and controls his body is nothing short of art, and the fact that he does it carrying an extra 40 to 50 odd pounds just makes it even more unbelievable. We're just wondering how the Marines would have fared against Paddy if he was at his original fight weight. That definitely wouldn't have ended well for them. Moving on, might as well put on the pounds. Remember that time when Paddy said he'd stop ballooning to 200 pounds once the UFC offered him a ranked opponent? Well, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that Paddy isn't delusional and thinks he'll probably have to wait at least 2 years to get a ranked opponent, since the division is stacked with all-stars. We're talking about a division that ranks the legendary Conor McGregor at number 12. So you can imagine the level of competition and how Paddy needs to take every fight as it comes and eventually work his way to a ranked opponent. But what's the bad news? We'll have to wait a year or two to see the 27-year-old finally fight a big name. It could end up happening sooner though, if someone from the top calls him out, or if he knocks someone out in spectacular fashion. But hey, at least he can still enjoy eating in between fights and pinning down US Marines, right? On a side note, the Brit talked about possibly having a legit eating disorder, so we hope he's able to get help and keep things under control. Now for being a true inspiration. When you think about it, Paddy Pimblett is a UFC legend in the making. He's already become an internet sensation with a ton of fans, but apart from all that, he's a true inspiration to people from all over the world. After winning his last fight, Paddy talked about how a really close friend of his had taken his own life, and later he urged men to talk about whatever they were going through and not do anything extreme. He received a lot of praise for his words, and after hanging out with the Marines, the 27-year-old talked about some struggles of his own. The Liverpool native said he went through severe depression in 2018, when he was just waking up and crying for an hour every single day. When asked about his biggest supporters, Paddy said his friends, family, coach, and fiance really helped him get out of that phase and go after his dreams. The Brit called the "get it off your chest" saying real, urging his fans to talk about whatever they're going through to get that extra bit of weight off your shoulders. From severe depression to submitting 10 Marines in a row, Paddy the Baddy has come a really long way. Time for some more on the UFC. Up next, a low-budget Vince McMahon. Dana White and Brendan Schaub have had their issues in the past, but it seems like the former UFC fighter has finally had it. He blew some serious steam and took a lot of critical shots at the boss, calling him a low-budget Vince McMahon. He talked about how Dana thinks he's some hotshot just because he wears designer jeans and some hip sneakers. Brendan also said White hasn't grown out of his frat vocabulary, calling him and a handful of other people things like dumbass, dummy, and fucking idiots. Brendan thinks the UFC boss needs a serious reality check, and it all starts with getting rid of the yes men around him. The former UFC fighter thinks Dana has partnerships with sheep media who never call out things for what they are, and instead just support the boss in whatever he says. He took another shot at the president, calling the partnership with Under Armour Rock shoes a complete sham, since fighters won't even be seeing a dime of it. We're gonna side with Brendan on this one. Even Francis Ngannou talked about how UFC partnerships don't benefit fighters at all. And after what went down at UFC 279, MMA media needs to learn a thing or two from Shaw and start asking Dana the real questions. Following up with a new feud. You might have watched one of our videos when we talked about Nate's vintage performance against Ferguson and how Ferguson, should consider hanging up the gloves now. Now, obviously, we're not gonna sit at home and tell fighters to hang up the gloves because they could beat the living daylights out of us any given day. But when it's a fighter-to-fighter conversation, things tend to get a bit heated. And that's exactly what happened when UFC Hall of Famer Daniel Cormier commented on Ferguson's last performance and how his fighting days are over. We're sure DC didn't mean any harm, since he also called him as good as the top guys in the league during his prime. But the comments haven't sat too well with Tony, igniting a new feud between the two UFC greats. Now, we're not gonna lie, Ferguson went below the belt with his comments. He said DC needs to stay off the sweets, otherwise all that sugar will get to his head, like old fathead Khabib. Creative, but still uncalled for. Last but not least, a new belt to his collection. Leon "Rocky" Edwards defied all odds at UFC 278, putting away the great Nigerian champion Kamaru Usman to take home the welterweight title. And even though it was an amazing kick to seal the deal, his victory still left a lot of question marks on whether he'd be able to defend it, considering how he got dominated for the entire fight. But the new champ is not coming slow, as he adds yet another belt to his collection. Edwards recently tweeted how he finally got his black belt in jiu-jitsu after months and months of training. The Jamaican-born British welterweight champion called it an amazing month, since it's probably the best time of his career. Not only is he at the top of the division, but he has a new and certified skill to up his armor. But despite the black belt, a lot of fans still think Usman seriously lacks wrestling skills, and that's one of the main reasons why his reign won't really last that long as compared to other champions of the division. We're not sure how we feel about those comments, to be honest. He survived 5 rounds against an elite wrestler, and that's nothing short of extraordinary. Let's not count him out so quickly. That's it from our side, folks. So what do you think? Were you amazed to see Paddy finesse 10 Marines in a row? And will Paddy be fighting a ranked opponent soon? Let us know in the comments below. Remember, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more entertaining and original content in the future. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.